Dan Marino doesn't talk just to hear his own voice. He doesn't throw words around for the sake of conversation. When he speaks, you listen, especially when he's talking about the Miami Dolphins, the franchise he carried for nearly 2 decades. And right now, his message is crystal clear, whether people want to hear it or not. If this team truly wants to compete for a Super Bowl, Tua Tagovailoa has to stay healthy. Not just for a few games. Not just for most of the season. For the whole thing. This wasn't some offhand comment or a throwaway thought. It was direct, calculated, and pointed. It came during an appearance on the Pat McAfee show, where Marino put it as plainly as possible. I thought we had a very good football team until we started getting injuries, especially at the end of the year. Tua is our quarterback. He's going to be our quarterback, but we need to find a way to just keep him healthy, especially at the end of the year when you have to win games to get in the playoffs. That's, I think, where the focus is going to be. That's it. That's the entire storyline of the Miami Dolphins right now, boiled down to one core truth. They can have the most explosive offense. They can have one of the best head coaches in the league. They can build a defense that shuts teams down and makes life miserable for opposing quarterbacks. But if Tua isn't available in December and January, it's all meaningless. This past season, the Dolphins looked like legitimate contenders until they didn't. The offense was clicking. The defense was starting to find its identity. There was confidence, swagger, and momentum. And then, in Week 2 against the Buffalo Bills, everything changed. Tua suffered a concussion. The season took a sharp turn in the wrong direction. Miami lost 5 of its next 6 games, stumbling through a stretch that no contender should ever have to endure. When Tua returned, the Dolphins made a push, fought their way back into the conversation. But it was too late. 1 win short. 1 step behind where they needed to be. And that's where the frustration sets in. Because this isn't about talent. It's not about coaching. It's not even about whether Tua is the right guy for the job. He is. That question has been answered. When he's on the field, this team is dangerous. His accuracy, his timing, his command of the offense. It all works. The problem? Availability. The NFL doesn't reward teams for being talented in September. Championships aren't won in October. The most important games happen when the calendar flips to December and January. And that's when Miami has fallen apart. That's what Dan Marino is really saying. Let's just be honest. The discussion around Tua's health isn't going away. It's been the defining storyline of his career, fair or not. Every hit he takes, every sack, every awkward fall, people hold their breath. They check for updates. They wait for news. That's not a normal way to experience football. That's not what you want for your franchise quarterback. But here's the part that makes this whole situation even tougher. It's not just about Tua. It's about the Dolphins as an organization, their training staff, their offensive line, their ability to keep everyone healthy when it matters most. Because it's not just the quarterback who got hurt last year. Miami limped to the finish line. Players were dropping like flies. The secondary was decimated. The offensive line was held together with duct tape and hope. By the time the biggest games arrived, this team wasn't whole. It wasn't complete. And it showed. So where does that leave us? This league doesn't wait for anyone. There are no excuses. No sympathy. No do-overs. The Dolphins can talk about potential all they want. They can talk about what could have happened if everyone stayed healthy. But none of that matters. You either show up in January ready to win, or you go home. And right now, this team hasn't proven it can do that. Dan Marino knows this. He's been around long enough to see how this story ends if nothing changes. He also knows that talent isn't the problem. Coaching isn't the problem. The quarterback isn't the problem. Durability is the problem. And that's the single biggest issue, standing between the Dolphins and a Lombardi trophy. So what's the solution? How do you fix something that seems impossible to control? Better training regimens? Smarter in-game decisions? A different approach to practice? A more aggressive philosophy when it comes to roster depth? Maybe it's all of the above. But one thing is for sure. If this team wants to go from dangerous when healthy to legitimate championship contender, then this can't be just another talking point. It has to be the priority. Because if next season looks anything like the last one, if Tua goes down, if key players can't stay on the field, then we already know how this story ends. And no one in Miami wants to live through that again.